I never expected my pain to be so invisible to the people who were supposed to love me the most. The morning I got the call that my fiancé, Ryan, had died in a car accident, I was in the middle of baking a surprise cake for my sister's birthday. We had been engaged for only 5 months. He was on his way to pick up flowers for me. I remember dropping the mixing bowl, hearing the ceramic shatter against the tile floor, and feeling like the ground had opened beneath me. Everything blurred into silence, except for the sound of my mother saying, "Sweetheart, maybe don't ruin your sister's birthday over this. She's only turning 21 once." I stared at her, numb. She didn't even flinch when she said it, as if the man I loved, the future I'd built in my head, had been no more than a passing inconvenience to their celebration plans. When my sister blew out her candles that night, I was sitting in my childhood bedroom, alone. No one came to check on me. The laughter echoed through the vents while I cried into Ryan's sweater, the one I hadn't had the courage to wash yet. I kept telling myself someone would come upstairs. Someone would remember. But no one did. The next morning, they posted a family photo on social media. Everyone was smiling. Even my dad, who had held me when I broke my arm in 2nd grade, captioned the picture, "Our shining girl's big day." I wasn't in the frame. I wasn't even mentioned. That weekend, I tried to speak with them. I told them how broken I felt. My mother sighed and said, "We all lose people, but life has to go on. You can't expect the whole house to grieve when we're trying to celebrate something happy." I blinked. He was my fiancé. "And she's my daughter," she snapped. "This was her birthday. Don't make everything about you." That was when I realized something. I wasn't part of their world anymore. Not really. I was a shadow, only acknowledged when convenient. My pain was too disruptive. My sadness didn't fit their perfect pictures. I stopped talking after that. I didn't yell, didn't argue. I just went quiet. I started going through the motions, eating dinner with them, answering politely, showing up when needed. But inside, I was disappearing. I deleted my social media. I started therapy. I got a remote job, saved every dime. And slowly, I began planning something they wouldn't see coming. Not out of spite. Not even out of revenge, but because I finally understood the one truth they'd taught me. I didn't belong in their celebrations, so they wouldn't be invited to mine. Grief doesn't fade. It carves you into someone new. And in that silence they forced me into, I slowly began to reshape myself. After that birthday night, I barely spoke unless spoken to. But while they thought I was retreating, I was rebuilding. Quietly, carefully. Every morning before dawn, I got up and applied to jobs far outside our town. Remote positions, freelance gigs, anything that could pay while keeping me invisible. I worked 12, sometimes 16 hours a day. I ate ramen noodles, canceled every subscription, and moved into the basement without a word. I even told my mother I didn't need anything for Christmas. She seemed thrilled not to have to spend a dime. A year passed. I never mentioned Ryan again. Not because I forgot, but because they didn't deserve to carry his memory. He was kind, generous, and never once made me feel small. His death changed me. Their reaction destroyed whatever hope I had that they'd ever change. In the 2nd year, I launched my own freelance business. It started with small design jobs, then exploded when one of my clients, a CEO based in Toronto, loved my pitch for her startup and offered to feature me in an industry webinar. One viral moment later, I was booking more clients than I could handle. I created a new identity online. No last name, no personal details, just the work. I poured myself into every project like it was an escape tunnel, and slowly it became one. By the end of that year, I had saved enough to do something bold. It started when I found the listing, a quaint event venue on the edge of town, the same venue my parents often raved about. The one my sister had already hinted she wanted to use for her upcoming engagement party. I saw the property online and felt my chest tighten. It was expensive. But with the earnings I'd piled up and the line of credit I now qualified for, it was within reach. And so, without a word, I made the call. I toured the property, signed the contract, and bought the place. Under my LLC. My name was nowhere visible. My parents had no idea I now owned the very building they were eyeing for my sister's dream day. Then came the email. My mother sent it to the venue's old public contact. "Hi, we're hoping to book the space on the 14th for our daughter's engagement party. We'd like something elegant but intimate. We've used this venue before and absolutely loved it." I didn't reply. My assistant did. She informed them politely that the date was already booked. My mother tried again, this time with a bribe. "We'll pay double." Still no. That's when they showed up in person. I was there, watching from the office window as my mother knocked on the door in a pastel blouse and a fake smile. She had no idea the woman behind the curtain was the same daughter she'd abandoned to cry into a dead man's sweater. She left after 10 minutes fuming. I saw her slam her car door, but I didn't gloat, not yet, because I wasn't finished. A month later, I posted a public announcement on the venue's social media account, a heartfelt message introducing the new silent owner, a survivor of deep personal grief who had turned loss into legacy. I told the story of how the venue had saved me, not in name, not directly, but everyone who knew me would know. The day after the post went live, I received a message from my sister. It was short, just one line. "Did you buy the venue?" I didn't reply. 3 days later, my mother came into my room, her tone sweet, like syrup. "I saw the post," she said. "Why didn't you tell us? We would have supported you." I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "You didn't even support me when I lost the love of my life. Why would I expect you to show up for my career?" She opened her mouth to defend herself. I raised my hand. "It's done. I don't need applause. I needed silence, and you gave me that. So I built a life in it." They didn't respond. They didn't know how. Because the truth wasn't just uncomfortable. It was undeniable. I had been their afterthought, their inconvenience, and now I was the gatekeeper to the one thing they wanted most. Their faces that day, frozen, stunned, were the very mirror image of what I had felt on that birthday 2 years ago. And it wasn't rage that filled me. It was peace. Because now they finally knew what it felt like to be shut out of the celebration. I didn't speak to my family for months after that confrontation. They stopped trying after a while. First, the texts slowed, then they stopped tagging me in family photos. I watched from a distance as they threw my sister's engagement party at some backup venue with peeling paint and folding chairs. The pictures were filtered, the captions overcompensating. A perfect night. Family is everything. But I could see it in their eyes. The perfection was missing, not because of me, but because they'd finally met the consequences they never thought would come. And for the first time in years, I felt whole. Not happy, not healed, but whole. You see, grief doesn't vanish. It moves into your bones, rearranging the way you carry yourself. Ryan's death never stopped hurting, but now the ache wasn't surrounded by resentment anymore. I had made room for it in my life, like a quiet roommate that reminded me of love, not loss. I continued building the venue, turning it into a thriving space that gave other people beautiful memories, the very thing my family had tried to rob me of. I started hosting charity events in Ryan's name, scholarships, fundraisers for grief counseling, even writing workshops for people navigating silence the way I once did. I met others who had felt invisible in their own families and turned their pain into something luminous. We weren't victims anymore. We were architects of our own peace. And then one afternoon, my phone buzzed with a message that made the air around me feel cold again. It was from my mother. "Dad's not doing well. The doctors say it might be time. I thought you should know." I stared at the message, unmoving. This man, this father, who once looked me in the eye and told me, "Don't ruin your sister's birthday with your emotions," was now lying in a hospital bed facing the one thing that silences all pride. I don't know what made me go. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was closure. I walked into that sterile room expecting guilt or anger. Instead, I saw a pale, tired man who looked nothing like the one who used to laugh over cake while I sat alone on the stairs. He opened his eyes slowly as I stood there, and the first thing he whispered was, "You made something beautiful." I froze. "What?" He coughed weakly. "The venue, the work you do. I watched it online. Your talks, your writing, I saw it all." I didn't speak. My heart was thudding. Not out of joy, but confusion. Was this an apology? A confession? "I was wrong," he said, "about how we treated you, about that day, about Ryan. I didn't know how to handle your pain, so I chose to ignore it. That was easier." Tears blurred my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Not yet. "You made something beautiful," he said again, weaker this time. "From what we broke." I sat down beside him, silent. I didn't hold his hand. I didn't cry. I just nodded. Because what do you say to a man who finally sees the fire, but only when it's already burned the bridge? He passed a few days later. I didn't stay for the funeral. My mother begged me to give a eulogy. I declined. Instead, I hosted a quiet dinner in Ryan's memory that same night at the venue. 10 guests, soft music, candles, laughter, a slideshow of Ryan's goofy selfies and bad puns. No one cried from grief that night. Only gratitude. It was then I knew. I had closed the loop. Not with revenge, not with punishment, but with purpose. Months later, I received an envelope in the mail. My father's will. He had left me a handwritten letter. Short. Careful. "You were the one I underestimated most, and yet you were the only one who built something that mattered. I hope you forgive me someday. But even if you don't, I'll always admire your strength." I folded the letter and put it in a box beside Ryan's old hoodie, 2 pieces of paper that marked both the beginning and end of my silence. I didn't return to the family group chat. I didn't need to. I had outgrown the need to belong where I was never truly welcomed. Because in the end, poetic justice isn't loud. It doesn't come with fireworks or applause. It comes with peace, with reclaiming your voice, with creating a life so full and authentic, it makes the silence scream in regret behind you. And that was the real revenge. Not the venue, not the silence, but becoming someone they could no longer ignore.